Administration officials stated you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. Another administration official said, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it. These statements were alarming and are part of the reason we're here today.
Is it absurd to expect a judge to take orders from a president? That question sparked a sharp and revealing exchange in a Senate hearing, as a judicial nominee was pressed on independence, political pressure, and the role of the courts in a divided America. What started as a discussion about election questions quickly turned into something bigger: whether judges are expected to align with political leaders or stand firmly on the Constitution alone. With talk of media influence, public opinion, and the power of voters, the hearing exposed a deeper tension at the heart of the system. Who really decides what's right, the president, the press, or the people? And when it comes to interpreting the Constitution, does meaning come from the founders' intent, or how ordinary Americans understood it centuries ago? Before we break this down, go ahead, grab your snack, settle in, and if you want more sharp, no-nonsense breakdowns like this, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe.
As we reflect on the 250th anniversary of our nation, some of our most cherished rights stand at the crossroads. Modern prosperity and technology provide us with the means to enjoy and exercise our God-given rights to a greater extent than ever before. Yet as the means and interest of Americans in exercising those rights have increased, so has the desire and tools for tyrants, both inside and outside of government, to tighten control over who, where, and how these rights are exercised. We have discussed at great length the grave attempts by our government to censor unfavored, unpopular, and inconvenient speech, no matter how true during the pandemic and beyond. We've also examined the threats to privacy and collection of data about all aspects of our lives by a myriad of government agencies. Today, we examine the growing threats by our government to restrict the right to keep and bear arms guaranteed by the Second Amendment. In the wake of a federal officer shooting and killing a protester who was legally carrying a holstered firearm, a succession of federal officials rushed to declare that citizens cannot exercise their First and Second Amendment rights at the same time. Administration officials stated you cannot bring a firearm loaded with multiple magazines to any sort of protest that you want. It's that simple. Another administration official said, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there's a high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. Don't do it. These statements were alarming and are part of the reason we're here today. Government employees take an oath to support and defend the entire Constitution of the United States, not just the parts which are convenient, depending on the political news of the day. It is not their job to decide when and which of your rights count on any given day. Just as our constitutional rights are nonpartisan and belong to all Americans across the political spectrum, these liberties are also non-negotiable. These freedoms are not independent of each other, but are undeniably bolstered by one another. They ensure that not only that Americans have rights, but that they can defend and speak about those rights without fear of government overreach. Unlike free speech, free exercise, and privacy, the right to keep and bear arms has been strengthened recently by the courts, and restrictions on that right are being overturned. In 2008, the Supreme Court upheld the Heller case, an individual's right to possess firearms in the home. 2 years later, the court ruled in McDonald case that the right to bear arms is applicable to laws enacted at the state and local levels. And in 2022, the court again ruled on the side of liberty in the Bruin case, stating that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to carry a handgun for self-defense outside the home. Even though the Supreme Court has made these rulings, politicians have not given up. Their attempts to usurp our constitutional right to keep and bear arms continues. In recent months, we have seen in Virginia, the state where we won our independence from the tyrannical British Crown, forced through the General Assembly countless pieces of misguided legislation intending to disarm lawful gun owners. In fact, just days ago, bills sent to the governor from the state legislature aimed to prohibit the carrying of a loaded firearm in public across the Commonwealth. Another bill, poised to become law, makes it a Class 1 misdemeanor for any person who imports, sells, manufactures, purchases, or transfers an assault firearm, all while creating an exemption for any government officer. As we saw during the pandemic, the government's mantra continues to be rules for thee, but not for me. Unfortunately, the case of Virginia is not unique. Many other states, including Colorado, Rhode Island, California, have passed similarly egregious legislation. While most of these laws will undoubtedly be challenged through the courts, this should be a wake-up call for every state across the nation. It's important to look at these and other specific instances of infringements on the right to keep and bear arms. We must be watchful to any and all violations and act accordingly. But what we really should do is aspire to, in this 250th year of our nation, is a government that stops asking how much restriction on our liberties it can get away with, and instead asks how it can protect and promote all of our rights, including our right to keep and bear arms. The ranking member is recognized for his opening statement.
A revealing exchange in a Senate hearing is putting a spotlight on judicial independence and how judges make decisions in a highly political environment. The discussion began with questions about why nominees are often asked to comment on elections or political issues, something one senator suggested is more about creating viral moments than legal substance. From there, the focus shifted to a key concern: should a judge be influenced by a president's views? The nominee made it clear, judges are not expected to take direction from any president, nor would they seek it out. Instead, decisions are based on the Constitution and the rule of law. That led to a broader point about disagreement. The exchange emphasized that in America, it's normal and necessary for people to both agree and disagree with political leaders. Ultimately, it's the American people who decide through elections, not the press or any single figure. The conversation then turned to constitutional interpretation, specifically the idea of originalism, a legal philosophy focused on understanding the Constitution based on its original public meaning at the time it was written, but even that raised deeper questions. Should interpretation rely more on what the founders intended, or how the public understood those words at the time? While no single answer was fully settled in the exchange, the discussion highlighted how complex and foundational these questions are to the legal system. At its core, this hearing wasn't just about one nominee, it was about the principles that guide the judiciary: independence, interpretation, and accountability. That's all for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.